My Children, and you will hear of a lovely feminine Paul Revere. Welcome to Locally Sourced. I'm Armanda Famiglietti. 241 years ago today, a 16-year-old Sybil Ludington rode horseback 40 miles in the rain at night in very dangerous terrain to alert her father's militia that the British were burning Danbury. And tonight, I'm very happy to have an expert on all things Sybil Ludington. Welcome, Vin Dacquino.
Well, good evening.
So glad you could be here, Vin.
Well, thank you.
I know.
I'm happy to be here.
We both spend a lot of time in the studio.
Yes,
but
we do. And
This,
it's strange to be on this side of the fence.
right,
but
you're going to be the interviewee,
Yes.
and I'm going to be the interviewer.
Wonderful.
So, Vin, you wrote 3 and maybe a half books on Sybil Ludington.
I did?
So tell me why the Sybil Ludington story is so compelling for you.
Sybil Ludington represents for me what all great Americans are made of. Courage, determination, the will to do what you have to do when you have to do it. And I was amazed. The first time that I saw who she was, I was on my way to school to teach. There on the side of the road was a sign. And it said, Sybil Ludington rode by this spot in 1777 to repel the British in Danbury. And I said, what? And I had no idea.
How many years ago was this?
20? Actually,
At least 20,
yeah.
right? Because you wrote the book in
because
2000.
it was in 1997.
Okay.
And then after I found out about her, I read the sign. I went over to the Mayapack Library, and there was a guy standing there with a ponytail and glasses.
You went right from that marker on the side of the road
No,
to the
actually-
Mayapack Library. That's amazing.
I did. And I was late for school, and I got fired, and had a lot of time to write the book. No. It was right after school that day. I was teaching all the way in Pelham. So I went to the library, and there was a guy with a ponytail and glasses who happens to be one of the cameramen on your show.
Our own Andy Campbell.
Andy Campbell. And Andy Campbell was standing there, and I went to him and I said, Sybil Ludington. And he said, no. And I said, not you. I said, I'm looking for Sybil Ludington. And he said, well, she died like in the 1800s. He said, I know. So he directed me over to the vertical file. And I opened the drawer, and there was a file this thick. And it was all about a 16-year-old hero of the Revolutionary War. And I was like, are you serious? Women never get credit for what they should get credit for.
Thank you, Vinny.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's true.
true.
They don't. And she was probably one of the most ripped off historical figures that I know. Her story was completely wrong. I got all excited about doing...
Now, wait a minute. Let's back up a second.
Yep.
How did you know when you went to the Mayapack Library that her story was
Because here's
completely
what
wrong?
happened. I pulled the file and I sat down and I started reading all this information. She was the mother of 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. I said, man, this happened in 1777. They got to be dead. And they have to be in a cemetery, and it has to be around here. 22 cemeteries later, no kids.
Okay. Did you find Sybil's grave in
Found
Patterson?
Sybil. She was buried with her mother and father, a brother and sister, no kids, no husband. I thought that was pretty strange.
Right.
So I said, well, let's see what else. So I went back to the 1930s. There was a paragraph that kept getting repeated.
Now, this is
over-
still at the Mayapack Library.
This is
You-
still...
all of
well,
this information is in
It started, well, the folder was there. Then once I had to do my research, I had to go to all over the place. I went to Washington, D.C. I went to Unadilla, New York.
Did you go to the Putnam Historian's Office or the...
So many times they thought I worked there. In Unadilla, I used to pass the people and say hello to them. They go, hi.
Where's
And then
Unadilla and Dutchess?
Unadilla is on Route 88 near Oneonta, all the way up near Sydney, New York.
Wow.
How she got there is another story, which I'll tell. But nothing in her biography was making sense. There was one paragraph. It said, Sybil Luddington, after her famous ride, married Henry or Edward or Edmund, depending on the article, Ogden, who was a lawyer in Catskill. She was the mother of 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. She raised her children in Catskill and later moved with them to Unadilla. Wrong, wrong, wrong.
So let me
and
interrupt you here. You were a real sleuth in tracking down the right information on Sybil Luddington.
That's what I do.
That's what you do.
I am a history investigator.
Okay, so that's great. So let me just talk about who Vin Dacquino is for a minute.
Oh, man.
And we'll get back to talking the incredibly interesting story of Sybil Luddington, as well as how you track down the true information, right? So tell me a little bit about Vin Dacquino. You have written, like I said, 3.5 books, and we have the covers of those books. So why don't you look at the monitor and tell me, when you see those book covers,
Okay.
a little bit what we would find in those books about Sybil Luddington.
All right, this is the first book I did on Sybil.
A Call to Arms.
And it's called A Call to Arms because that's exactly what she's known for. Back in the day, that is exactly, as you said,
Today. That's
Yep.
why we're doing this show.
Yep.
It's the anniversary.
241 years ago today, Sybil was sitting by the fire with her parents.
Hold on for a second. Just tell me that we talked a little before the show. You had said that this book was more of a historical book written
Right.
for adults, right? And this is a much fuller, detailed story of Sybil, her family, her parents,
Yep.
Sybil, her husband, her children, and what came
Cradle
after.
to grave
Cradle-
biography.
And beyond, right?
Yep.
So what's the next book that you wrote about Sybil?
After that, I wrote a children's book
And we can
because
see that up in a
children
minute.
needed to know who she was.
Right.
And I needed something to put in the hands of teachers.
And we're going to see the cover of that book. Can we bring
Eventually.
up that book? Eventually. There it is.
There it is. This is also published by Purple Mountain Press. What I did is
I'm
what
going to
I
interrupt you again. So there's the famous statue of Sybil
Yes.
Luddington. She was
Yes,
on
yes.
the previous cover of the book and on this
Yep.
cover of the book. And that statue is where? Where can people
that
see that?
statue is right in Carmel on Lake Glenida, thanks to the Daughters of the American Revolution and Anna Hyatt Huntington, who was 80-something years old when she made this statue.
Good grief.
And guess why she made that statue?
80, how? Who?
80-something, because I don't know exactly when she started and when she finished.
Okay.
She actually started,
In 1959, right?
yeah, like...
And the
she-
statue was dedicated
Yeah, the
when?
conception was like in 58. She started in like 59, and the introduction of the statue was 61.
Okay, can we see that slide again, please? Because this book is written for young adults, you said.
Right.
So
this,
you
the yellow book.
right, this book. Okay.
Right. Now, this was, again, with Purple Mountain Press. I wanted to do this first. The publisher said, no, you can't. You have to establish who she is first. So you need to write the adult book first, and then you can write the kids' book.
Okay.
That's exactly what I did.
And then there's another book that you
Yep.
wrote, and this is for a whole different group
Yeah,
of
and
folks.
this is a fun book.
Okay, we're
What
going
I
to see
did
that in a second.
When Sybil
Yes.
was much older, she was a grandmother, she had 6 grandchildren.
Okay, that's where the 6 comes in,
Yeah,
right?
so I put Sybil in a rocking chair with the kids at her feet. And this is actually, Diane Vinipol is a Carmel resident. She lived here almost all her life. She's an illustrator, and she was a member of my writers group. And I asked her to create these drawings for me. So this cover comes from Diane. She did a wonderful job. This is historical fiction. I have no idea if Sybil Ludington sat in a rocking chair in front of a fireplace and talked to those 6
But
kids.
you are introducing Sybil to a young crowd
Yes.
with this,
So
right?
what I did is I made her a grandmother, and I made her talk to the kids and let the kids talk back. Well, something wonderful has happened for this new book I'm doing.
No, let's talk about the new book at the end. Let me.
Oh, man.
Right now,
I know why I'm usually the host, so I get to decide what to say.
No, that's right, right. Now you're in the other seat, Vinny.
All right.
And speaking of being a host, I just want to talk a little about you because you are quite the personality in Putnam County and Westchester County. And one of the
Does that mean like a character?
Yeah. One of the many things you do is that you have a television show of your own right here.
200 episodes.
200? I thought you were coming to
We
your
did
100th.
100 of Let's Talk Writing.
Okay.
And then I started
A new show.
a new show with people and
Called?
their passions.
Well, Vin
and it's
and-
called One-on-One with Vin Dacquino.
Okay, and we have a slide about that Monday night, 7 o'clock,
There you
right
go.
here on Comcast,
Right here on
Channel
Comcast.
8. So be sure to tune in because you have so many really great guests. And
Oh, they're amazing guests.
aren't they?
You were
They're-
one of them.
No, I was never a guest.
Never
on
a
your
guest?
show.
Yes, you. Well, no, you were. You had
I-
a spotlight on the 50th show. And
no.
you came on for a little while, wasn't it? It
Maybe
was the
something
50th
like
show?
that. I don't
you-
know. Yeah, I
you
was.
were on a very
I
short.
was a
Yep.
10-second
All
guest.
right. Well, you were a cameo guest. I treat all my guests equally.
Okay, so I got 10 seconds. But if that's an invitation to be on your show, I will happily accept.
I would love to have you on the show. You would be a wonderful guest.
And you have lots
I
of
get to interrupt you and tell you what you have to say.
you have lots of history folks on that show because that's such a prime
Yeah,
interest
it
of
is.
yours,
It
right?
is.
And you've written other books about the history of,
I mean-
including one that includes more information about Sybil Ludington,
Yes,
right?
there's unfortunately there's people who naysayers, and there are people who don't believe Sybil took that ride, and I
is
fight
that
them
what
tooth and
you
nail.
is that what you
That's
talk
what this
about
new
in the
book-
hauntings of? No, we're going to
No, in the hauntings, I talk about the fact that Sybil has been haunting me since I saw that sign on the side of the road because her story was incorrect. She didn't have 6 children. She didn't marry Henry. All of those things. It took me 3 years to research. And I laugh sometimes. People say, "Oh, well, all you did was tell Sybil's story." Isn't your story, it was Sybil's story. Yeah, except that Sybil's story was in pieces all over the world.
Well, isn't that what a historian
Yeah.
does? They don't
So-
tell their own story.
Yeah,
They tell the
I
story of
had
their
to
subject.
Yeah, I had to pull
That's
that
what you should tell
information
them.
and prove. I had to produce documents to prove, for example, that she was married to Edmund and not Henry.
Right, right.
Her name, there's 7 spellings of her first name. There were so many different things I had to dig out.
So actually, you know what,
Wow.
Vin? I want to talk right now about Vin Dacquino.
Oh, him? We have to talk about him.
I know, Vin, you are a very modest guy, and you hate to
I
talk about
hate to be in front of the camera. Hate to be.
You hate to talk about yourself,
Oh.
but I want you to just come
actually
forward
do hate
for
to
a
talk about
little,
myself.
for a little bit, because
I was a teacher for 35 years.
hold on. Not only, well, you were a teacher for 35 years, but right now, not only do you do this weekly
the show.
television show,
Yeah, weekly show.
but you also do something else weekly that's a real service to the community, which
We can
is...
talk about that? Oh, you mean the writing? Yes. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
I have been working
We have some
with-
information about how people can contact you if they want to get into your writing group.
They should. I have been a writer's advocate for as long as I can remember. I worked with Peanut Butter and Jelly Writing Academy when I was a teacher, which means I brought kids around a table.
Is that still around, Peanut Butter?
Not really.
Okay.
And I put kids around the table and served them peanut butter and jelly when peanut butter wasn't illegal. Now you can't because there's peanut allergies all over the
Right.
place. So I did the peanut butter and jelly writing. And later, when I retired, actually before I retired, I created what was called the Mayapack Writers Group. That was in 1997. We've been doing that for over 20 years.
Wow.
And Andy Campbell has been a very big part of that.
Tell me how many people who were in your writers group over 20 years have actually published a book?
We can credit ourselves with over 150 books.
Wow.
Now, wait a minute. 150 books written by people who were members of the group. Now, I say that carefully because not all 150 were written while they were members. Some of those books were written before they were members, while they were members, or after they were members. But 150 books.
Congratulations.
These are authors who, they come there to share their talents. Unfortunately, if a kid wants to get into basketball, he goes in the driveway, shoots hoops in the driveway, goes, plays football, does whatever he or she wants to do. But there's so few opportunities for writers to say what they need to say and want to say. And it's crucial. I will be doing a huge thing in May, the Rotary Club of May. Rotary Club in May.
Which there are a lot of Rotary clubs.
It's the Northeast Rotary Club of Somers.
Okay.
And they just recently gave me an award called the Paul Harris Award.
Congratulations.
And it was for my work with a project that they have called On My Mind. I love it. They go out into the schools and they get kids to write poems. And then they put them together in a book called On My Mind. And they first asked me to be a speaker for them. And I went and talked to those kids about how wonderful this was, that they were speaking out and writing about how they felt. Well, the next year they asked me to do the introduction to the book. This year I'm doing the introduction and I am doing the speech to them.
Okay, so let's get back to Sybil's story.
We have to?
Yeah, because it is her anniversary and we are
All
celebrating
right, let's stay with Sybil.
our local hero, one of my favorite heroes, Sybil Luddington.
Mine
So,
too.
in your most dramatic way, Vin.
Yeah.
No, okay, so not your most dramatic, but dramatic way. Tell the story of Sybil Luddington and her ride.
So going back,
in 1777, April 27th to
she's
April 28th.
sitting on the floor, probably leaning up against her father's legs. So
Who
happy.
was her father?
The great Colonel Henry Luddington, who's kind of like
Of the Duchess Militia.
And well, he was like the chief of police for all of Westchester County, which was called the neutral territory.
And what was happening in Danbury with the British forces?
Well, slow down.
Well, we only have 10
She's
more
still
minutes,
sitting by the
Vin, and
fire.
I know you can tell her.
She's
quite a
sitting by
row.
the fire.
Yeah.
And
who comes knocking at the
She's
door?
so happy because her father's usually out getting shot at, and she's scared to death
Okay,
that
right.
one day her father's going to come home dead.
Yeah.
That's a very big part of her story.
Right. Well,
Because
everybody was.
She is in every way a daughter of the American Revolution.
At
that
that-
means they suffer. They're victims too.
Let me interrupt you. At that point in history, it was a very dangerous time for anyone who was
Everybody.
on a big farm, as the
Neighbors are
Luddingtons
your
were.
enemies.
You don't know who's your enemy.
Your enemy could
You've
be
got-
hiding behind the outhouse.
You've got Skinners, you've got cowboys, you've
Yep.
got British
Yep.
forces, and spies are
And
everywhere.
they all want Colonel Luddington dead.
Right. Well, there's a
because
price
he's
on his
stopping.
head.
Yes, he's stopping the Skinners and the cowboys.
How much
for
was the price
stealing
on his head? It was
300 guineas.
wow. Okay.
We won't go into what. A
Okay.
guinea
So there's a knock at the door.
is. Yep. They knock at the door. No, they're sitting there. They hear a horse approach. They get scared. People want him dead.
Well,
Although he walks to the door and knocks on the door. Killers usually don't knock on the door.
right. So who is it at the
He
door?
says, "Who goes there?" And the messenger.
10 minutes. We only have like 7 minutes now.
Holy cow! And the messenger says, "I'm a messenger from General Goselick Silman, Benedict Arnold."
That was when he
and
was
David
still a
Wooster.
good guy, right?
So,
Benedict
yeah,
Arnold.
at that time he was still a good guy. And he says, "I need your men." And he's dripping in mud. He's exhausted. And the colonel said, "My men are militia. This is April, planting season. They're in bed. They've been in bed. It's 9 o'clock on a rainy Sunday night.
And they're all over Dutchess County
all
and
over,
Westchester.
in nooks and crannies.
There was no Putnam at this
Farmers
time.
have acres of land. The only person who could have possibly known where those men lived was Sybil, because she
Or the
went
colonel.
with her father or the colonel. But if she's out there calling them when they arrive, he has to be there for them.
Right.
So she says, "Send me." Off she goes.
So she has to be sent because this poor messenger is exhausted. The horse is exhausted. Sybil is 16 years old. She knows where all
And
the
here's
militia
why
live.
I
and
can't go to Massachusetts.
And she volunteers, right?
Here's why I can't go to Boston. Sybil, Paul Revere went 12 miles. Sybil went 40. Paul Revere was a man of 40 years old. Sybil just turned 16. Paul Revere had 2 helpers. Sybil had none. Paul Revere went on a lovely night in Boston. Sybil went in the pouring rain through mud paths.
Right. And don't forget those Skinners and cowboys.
And how about Paul Revere got caught and Sybil didn't? So why in the world doesn't she get the credit she deserves?
Oh, my goodness. So tell me about the stick and the horse.
Yeah. She's got the stick to beat the British. No. She's got the stick to beat the horse.
Right.
No.
And we have her map
She's
up
got,
there
there's
now.
a map. So all these roads that she was on, we try to follow that the best we can. I take people on bus trips.
Right. Oh, yeah.
However,
And children.
if
you
I
take.
took people on the exact trip that she took, we'd be going through the reservoirs. We'd be drowned by now. And we'd have to go through, I mean, those roads didn't exist.
Right.
When she went, it was a treacherous road. And as you say,
Now let me look at that map
Yep.
together. Okay, so you can see it says Putnam County in the middle, but
it
Putnam
was
County
Dutchess.
was not formed until
right.
1812.
Till 1812.
So we're talking about mostly Dutchess County and
Yep.
a little bit
Yep.
any of West. And look at Mayapac's in there, Carmel's in there.
Mayapack Mines.
Cold Spring is in there. What we now call Ludington, which
Yep.
used to be called Fredericksburg, is in
Yep.
there. So this
And-
whole area is
Yep.
full of Sybil Ludington history,
all
right?
the way through. And not only here, it's really the Hudson River Valley. The new book I'm doing, I just got an email from the publisher who said, "No, Vin, you're not going to write that Sybil Ludding of Putnam County. You're going to write about Sybil Ludding of the Hudson River Valley."
Right, right.
She's a hero of this entire area.
She is. So let's go back to her story now.
Okay.
She, like I said, she's got a stick,
She's riding with a stick. It's to
And her-
bang on the shutters so she doesn't have to get off the horse
and
every
also
time.
to, as I read in your book, that
Yep.
it was to fight off the people who might attack her. These criminals,
Yeah,
these
more-
cowboys, these Skinners, as they were
More
called.
to alert the farmers. That stick was really there so she could bang on the shutters.
Okay.
Because she couldn't get off the horse and on again all the time.
Right, right.
It was a 40-mile trek through the mud. So after she went all the way through, it was finally daybreak. She gets there, and the farmers yelled, "Huzzah!" which was their way of saying hooray.
Okay.
In
And now
those days.
what she told them was, get to my dad's house, right?
Yes.
By
Muster-
daybreak.
Yes. Muster at the Ludingtons. Muster at the parade grounds.
And how
is
many of
more
them
likely.
came?
Well, it's controversial. There's some new books that have come out, and I talk about this in my new book, that they say, the chances of all 400 of his men showing up that night was unlikely.
Okay.
However, did they show up, and was the colonel involved in the Danbury affair? The answer is absolutely. And in the new book, I have absolute documentary proof that he was involved in that
Okay, so
skirmish.
we also have a slide of the markers that are all over that route, right? So,
Yeah.
and that was the marker that got you on this lifelong quest to
yeah.
find out about Sybil Ludington. So let's see one of those slides about one of the marker
No,
slides.
this
There
is
it
what I saw.
Right, and these are all over the
They
place.
got me
right?
going there. However, many of these, I don't want to say replaced, but there are new signs.
Okay.
White signs made by Jimmy Walsh, who is a Mayapack resident. He was an Eagle Scout.
Okay, we got to skip ahead because we are almost out of time.
Oh, man.
So let me show
We need an
you.
extension.
No, so Sybil is a great hero. She was first written about by a man named Johnson. You kind of picked
Yeah.
up the lead. Now for a minute, let me just say that we've got a couple more slides I really want to show.
Okay.
So let's show the slide of where Sybil.
The stamp.
Okay, hold on. I want to see Sybil's.
The coin.
I want to see her
Medal,
grave.
actually.
Let's see the grave. Okay,
The grave.
so so where is Sybil buried, and where can we go and pay honor to her?
She is buried in Patterson, New York.
There it is.
Behind the Presbyterian Church. Notice Sibbell. The only person who called her that was her great nephew, who wrote an article about her.
Yeah, but it was on her gravestone, so
No.
maybe that was the correct
so
spelling.
I think that he probably influenced the spelling of that gravestone in some way.
Oh, okay. So now let me see the stamp, and I want to see the medal, because I want to show that Sybil is being honored.
Yep.
Every 40 or so
Yep.
years, Sybil gets honored. This is a stamp that came out around 1971.
There is an article that was written recently that said that the Daughters of the American Revolution will not honor Sybil as a patriot,
We
only
got 1
as a
minute
daughter.
left, Vinny. Let me see the medals that the
And yet,
DAR.
look at the medal that they created in
Right.
1977. They created this medal.
It's a beautiful
it says,
medal.
Great Women of the American Revolution. If she's not a great patriot, why are you creating a medal in her honor? So that's another thing that I discuss in my
Vinny,
book.
we are all out of time.
No! I'm not leaving!
Vinny, when you do that, the poor audio guy.
He's going to be as deaf as I am.
I know, he is, but anyway, so Vinny, thank you so
What a
much
pleasure to be
for
here.
coming.
You are coming on my show, and we'll continue this conversation on my show.
That sounds perfect.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for tuning in. Oh,
And let's celebrate Sybil Luddington.
Yes.
Thanks,
her
Drew.
anniversary was actually yesterday. Her ride ended today, this morning, where she finally went to bed exhausted.